Thank you for taking the time out and being here today. CCS Learning Academy is the professional training division of the CCS Global Tech, a 28 years old full service IT consulting firm. We help business to build their teams with skill tech professionals depending on their project needs. We also help them by upskilling, reskilling their workforce on the latest technology trends, professional developments, and leadership training. We offer a wide range of innovative technology solutions, training, and career placements. My name is Rajbir Singh, manager at CCS Learning Academy, and I have been in technology and professional training sector for over a decade. I work with students, organizations, and leaders for their professional development. We will be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we have enabled our Ask a Question feature. It is on the bottom of your screen. If you have any question, just put them in there. Today, we have well-respected subject matter expert, Microsoft certified trainer, and a speaker who has 13 plus years of experience in data engineering and business intelligence. He is also specialized in data modeling, ETL, data virtualizations, and cloud solutions. So please welcome Nishant Mishra. I will hand over to Nishant now. Nishant, you can take it up from here.
Thanks, Rajveer. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, based on different time zones in the States. So today we're going to talk about, in this introduction session, what is the need of data integration for data analytics? How can we perform data integration, breaking the silos and integrating different line of businesses together so to feed the analytics platforms? What are the different components of Azure Data Factory, which is one of the renowned data integration tool available in the market. And we'll also do a small demonstration, which is pre-recorded to save time. And after that, I'll go over what this data engineering bootcamp is all about, what is being offered, what all technology is being taught, and what will you achieve after finishing this bootcamp program. So that being said, let's quickly jump in to the, understand why there is a need of data integration and analytics, so why these two things goes hand in hand, right? So we all have seen, be it any business process, be it insurance, be it e-commerce, retail, banking and whatnot. These domains have different categories of transactional systems which captures or records day-to-day business transactions, right? If I give an example, Walmart, right? Every second there is around 65,000 transactions happens within the states only, right? Now we have this massive amount of data generated, right? If I take another example, maybe the gaming industry, right? These weblogs, right, which is being generated, every nanosecond, it is tremendous. It is huge, right? And if we store this information, we primarily store them either in NoSQL format or we store them into a tabular format, right? Now, deriving insights on top of this giant data sets, which goes in peta and zettabytes, is going to be a very challenging task, right? If I give an example, let's suppose in a sales domain, right, or in an e-commerce, if the C-suite wants to know what is the sales trend, right? Now, the sales trend is going to be derived based on the last, let's suppose, 2 quarters sales data, right? And if I say, let's suppose, every day they are making around 10,000 transactions, right? So if you give this data set in a tabular format to the C-suite, they won't be able to derive any sort of insights. They won't be able to make any decision because this is not going to give any sort of messaging, right? It will just gives you, hey, this is the data in rows and column format, and I cannot see anything, right? So that's why, we have to move this data from these transactional systems to the analytics platform, right? Now, this analytics platform could be anything, could be Azure Synapse, where you have all the data aggregated based on various dimensions. It could be time, it could be product, it could be XYZ dimension, where whatever dimensions you want to analyze that fact, right? It could be Snowflake, it could be Redshift, it could be BigQuery and whatnot, right? So how can we move this data seamlessly from transactional system to the analytics platform? So that is one of the biggest challenge that industry had way back, right? So in early days of our lives, we used to write long codes, like thousands lines of code. I still remember uh, back in days with one of the customer, I have written a stored procedure which is approximately 9,000 lines of code to process the insurance data, right? Now, there is no problem at all in writing this long code, but the main challenge is the maintenance and the scalability, right? Tomorrow, if you have to add a new dimension for processing, you have to go and make changes to the whole code, right? And if something went wrong in one line, then debugging is going to be a challenging and painful process, right? So how can we bridge this gap, right? How can we make sure that we move the data seamlessly from point A to point B and make it readily available in the analytics platform for the consumption purposes, right? So how do we bridge that gap? So answer is yes, we should have a data integration platform or a tool in place, right? And this integration tool could be anything, like, there are plenty of tools available in the market which can be used. There are open source and there are paid ones, right? So Data Factory is one of the renowned tool in the market. Of course, it is from Microsoft, and it's a well-known brand in the market or in the industry, right? So Microsoft has got two tools. One is Azure Data Factory, and second is the SQL Server Integration Services, SSIS in short, right? Apart from that, Oracle has its own tool called Oracle Data Integrator. We have Alteryx, we have Alicion, we have Talent, we have Informatica, we have DBT, which is also getting popular these days, right? So today we're going to talk about Data Factory, the different components of Data Factory, and how Data Factory can help us create and design the complex workflows for moving data from point A to point B and make it available for the reporting purposes. So first, let's understand what is Data Factory, what it is all about, right? So Data Factory is a cloud-based managed ETL tool, which can be used to perform hybrid ETL and ELT processes or data integration projects. ETL meaning, like, you simply extract the data from the underlying data sources, and on the way in the transit, you apply the transformation and pretty much load them into the destination where it is ready for consumption, right? But industry is shifting to a scenario where we want to load everything, whatever we have, but we may not analyze all the data, right? So for example, I have data worth, or if I talk about time duration, like, I have data for last 50 years, right? I want to load everything in my analytics platform, but maybe the analysis could be done based on the last 3 years or last 5 years of data set, right? So that's where we are going towards the ELT processes, where you extract everything, dump it into your data lakes or snowflakes and whatnot, because the storage is very cheap these days. And then you pretty much apply the transformation on those data elements which you want to analyze, for your business or for your decision making, right? Data Factory not just performs the ETL and ELT operations, but it will help you design the end-to-end data orchestration, right? When I say data orchestration, meaning that you have sources and you have destination, which is your analytics platforms, and then you have your presentation layer, right? So ADF can help you pull the data from various sources, push them into the analytics platform that is a destination. And after that, if you want to trigger, refresh once the data is available in the analytics platform, you want to also refresh your underlying reports or dashboards. That can also be done with the help of Data Factory. Uh, Another advantage of ADF is pretty much it is code-free UI, where you can pretty much drag and drop the different key elements and configure your workflow, and you can chain all the activities with the help of various data integration precedence constraints, right? It also provides you a kind of a single glass of pane view where you can monitor what all activities are being executing, what pipelines has been executed day in, day out, how much time it took, where it went wrong, if it failed for any reason, what was the reason for the failure, right? And you can pretty much manage the whole workflow within this code-free UI. It also provides you a way to visualize how the data is moving from point A to point B, that we call it as data lineage or data providence, where it shows how the data has passed along through different steps throughout the processing, right? And if something went wrong during that, you can also pinpoint it and analyze that this is the point where data has failed or data has got some problem, right? So that is another advantage or the good feature that ADF offers. Now, the workflow that we designed, there could be different ways or different requirements to execute them, right? So you can execute them on a daily basis, hourly basis, weekly basis, right? There could be scenarios where you want to execute your workflows based on certain events, right? So for example, let's suppose if I'm getting the web logs of a game or some sort of browsing right from Google AdWords, right? And I only want to execute my pipelines only when the file is available in my blob storage, right? If the file is not available, we don't want to execute the pipeline because it is pay-as-you-go model, right? So we don't want to waste money. So in that case, we can use events, right? When the file creation event triggers, only then this pipeline will be triggered. If not, then pipeline won't trigger and save the time and money. Another way is like, sometimes we would like to retain the execution of the last pipeline run, and then we want to resume from there, right? That can also be done with the help of tumbling window triggers within the Azure Data Factory, right? Then Data Factory also integrates with various source control or versioning tools. And it is very important for us to track down what changes has been made to the pipeline or the workflow by whom, when, and what, right? And you need to move the workflow from the development environment to the higher environment, right? From the lower environment to the higher environment, right? So primarily lower environment is your dev environment and high environment is your QA and prod environment, right? So ADF integrates very well with the Azure DevOps and GitHub, and where you can create various repository to save the ARM templates of your ADF workflows. And these ARM templates are nothing but the JSON templates, JSON files, which can be reused for any repurposing or redeployments, right? So ADF can help you create CI/CD pipelines, which stands for continuous integration and continuous development as well as continuous deployment, right? So you can seamlessly move the code from the dev environment to the QA environment and QA to prod, right? And then last point is you can also, let's suppose if you have any existing ETL workflows within SSIS, right? Since SSIS and ADF both are from Microsoft. So in case if you have any existing workflows, because SSIS is one of the common tools used in the market for a decade, right? Or over a decade now. So if you have any legacy packages built in SSIS and you want to lift and shift them to the ADF, it also offers a way to pretty much drag and drop and push your SSIS packages within the ADF containers, and ADF will hold it and pretty much help you execute that as part of the ADF pipelines. So that's pretty much a very high level overview of Azure Data Factory. Next, we would like to move on to see how Data Factory works, right? Since ADF is a code-free ETL as a service platform, right? And it operates in 3 steps, right? Connect and collect, transform and enrich, and publish, right? So Data Factory has more than 100 built-in data connectors, which can help you connect to any sort of relational, uh, semi-structured or unstructured data sources. And you can pretty much bring them, into the Data Factory engine with the help of these built-in sources, right? Now, once the data comes into the ADF engine, you pretty much start prepping them, right? You start massaging them, right? So one way of massaging them is pretty much you can do it on the fly, where data comes in into the Data Factory engine, and you leverage data flows or ADF, Databricks component to apply the transformation logics on top of your data. And then from there, you pretty much publish it to your analytics platform, which could be Azure Synapse, or Snowflake, Redshift, and whatnot. And from there, the presentation layer will start consuming it, right? Another way of transforming the data is sometimes we hold the data into the staging area, right? And that staging area could be any data store, right? So for example, let's suppose I'm moving data from SQL Server as a database, as a source system, and I'm gonna hold it into my blob storage for a time being. and I apply all the transformation, and then I push it to the presentation layer or the analytics platform layer, right? So that's how this ADF works. Three-step process. You use your built-in connectors to connect and collect the information. Use built-in transformations with the help of data flows or data bricks. Apply those transformation if you want to use any code or a script, be it Python, be it NoSQL, be it TSQL, be it PLSQL. Use the Databricks workflow or the script activities. And once you are done with the enrichment, you pretty much publish it to the analytics platform. And again, the analytics platform could be any warehousing platform, any file system, relational database system, data lake, delta lake, whatever you want to go with, right? And then that once the data is loaded there, it would be readily available for the presentation layer. So that's how the ADF works in general. Now, next is the different components of Data Factory, right? Now, Data Factory works with the help of these activities, these elements, which is mentioned here. And the first 5 elements, which is pipeline, triggers, activities, data sets, and linked services. These are the mandatory elements which has to be provisioned or created before you actually start, or which before your pipeline works, right? If any of the element is missing, then pretty much a pipeline may not work, right? And it will start throwing a lot of compilation time errors. Whereas the last two, data flow and integration runtimes, are something which is, on need basis. Primarily the data flow element. Integration runtime is also equally important because it's a compute service. So I'll explain all these elements in the upcoming slide in detail, but just to give you a very brief idea, a pipeline is nothing but a container which hold a series of instructions or activities which you want to perform on the data. Triggers, as I explained before, it's something which is used to execute the pipelines, and there are different types of it. Activities is a basic unit of work, right? For example, moving data from point A to point B, move operation. Move is an activity, right? You want to rename a column. Renaming is an activity, right? Data set is nothing but a data structure of your source or destination, like what table, what database you are pulling information from, or what table you are writing the information to, right? Linked service is nothing but a connection string, which talks about what data store you are talking to, what is the type. Is it a relational database? If it is a relational, then what is the server name? What is the IP address? What is the database name? What is the username? What is the password? These all information gets stored within the linked service. Data flow is nothing but a way to apply transformation. It has pre-built list of transformations available, which I'll be explaining in the upcoming slides. And last is the integration runtime, which is nothing but a compute service, since ADF is a managed cloud service, which is readily available and can be scaled on need basis. So it's a pure SaaS offering, software as a service offering. So you just log into browser and pretty much start using it, right? So in order to provide the compute resources to these SaaS services, we have this integration runtime, which is nothing but a kind of a virtual machine running behind the scene, right? And on the right-hand side, you see the relationship, right? How the pipeline contains multiple activities. Activities consumes data from the data sets or provides data to the data set. And data set is directly dependent on the linked services, right? As well as activity also uses those compute, which is, or the connection strings provided by the linked service, and linked service indirectly goes to the integration runtimes to get those compute services. That being said, let's go on to the pipeline and trigger the first component, right? So as I said, the pipeline is a logical grouping of a set of activities. And I was talking previously, activities could be anything, right? So for example, if I want to call a SQL routine on a database server, right, from ADF. So I will be using simply an script activity, right, where I will be providing what is the name of my server and what is the name of the database which holds that procedure or routine, and the name of the routine itself, right? So the name of the server and the name of the database comes from the linked service, whereas the name of the procedure I'll directly put into the activity itself, right? For example, if you want to look for an existence of a record within a database server, or existence of a file within a file system, right? I may go for using a lookup activity, or I may use a metadata search activity, right? So there are more than hundreds of activities available within the Data Factory Studio, which can be used at a scale to perform any operation, right? A data factory can have more than one pipeline, you know, and each pipeline can have a maximum 40 activities, which can be chained together with the help of different precedence constraints. There are different types of it, like success, failure, completion, escape, and whatnot, right? So the way you want to harness the overall orchestration, you can choose any of these precedence constraints to perform the overall, orchestration process, right? Now, these pipelines can be executed manually or can be triggered with the help of a feature called trigger itself. When I say manually, which means a debugging process where you can debug the overall pipeline, and at the runtime, compute would be provisioned to perform that debugging process. Whereas if you want to execute it, with the help of triggers, there are three ways to kick it off, right? First is the schedule trigger, primarily when you want to execute your pipeline on a regular interval, right? And that's where the schedule triggers can be used. And there are different schedules available where you can execute it every hour, every day, every week, every minute, depending on the requirements, right? Second, we have tumbling window trigger. Tumbling window is pretty much executes a pipeline on a periodic basis, as well as retaining the state of the last execution performed by the trigger, right? So this is basically when you have some sort of dependency, that's where we will be using tumbling window trigger. And the third one is the event-based trigger, where if you want to execute the pipeline based on execution of certain events, right? One example which I gave you was the very common example is when the file was created or moved or renamed or whatnot, right? So in those cases, we can pretty much go for using the event-based triggers. And this is how the dependency of, which I was explaining in the previous slide as well, the pipeline is a logical grouping of activities, and activity consumes or produces data elements. Next is the activities. So pretty much there are different types of activities available within the data factory, as I said before, right? And activity is nothing but a basic unit of work, right? So for example, I want to move data from one of the transactional system to a warehouse layer. And while moving, I want to apply the business rules. I want to apply some exceptions as well. And then I want to load this into the destination. So pretty much four-step process. First step is extract. Second step is the transform. Third step is the exception application. And fourth step is the loading process, right? So for this purpose, I may be using different activities, right? So there are different categories of activities. The first one is a data movement activity, pretty much copy activity, right? Which is one of the common examples. In data movement, you pretty much get the other options as well, where you want to use the custom codes to process the data. But if you talk about the built-in activities, copy activity is the most commonly used one. So what copy activity does is pretty much it pulls the information from point A and pushes to the point B. That is all the purpose of the copy activity, right? Then we have the data transformation activities, which includes some of the common activities are data flow, stored procedures, data breaks, SD insights. So whenever you want to apply any sort of data wrangling operations, data massaging, data cleansing operations, that's where we use these kind of activities. There are more than these four activities under data transformation. I just kept the very high level or the commonly used. So data flow is pretty much used for data transformation, such as like, you want to create a calculated column based on a given column, right? You want to merge the data set. You want to divide the data set based on certain conditions. You want to make copies of a data elements, right? You want to perform a comparison and then apply certain logics, right? So for those activities, we can use these transformation activities, right? We have control activities as well, where that guides, that monitors how the overall operation will be performed. Like we have an execute pipeline activity. So for example, let's suppose there is a scenario where you are creating a very complicated pipeline and you end up creating 60 activities, right? But one pipeline can have only 40 activities at maximum, right? So now you have to break that pipeline into two components, master and child, right? Where the master will have maybe some of the activities, right? Maybe for first 20 steps or 20 activities. And then you will call an execute pipeline. And in that execute pipeline, you will call that child pipeline, which will have the rest of the activities, right? Then you have for each. Let's suppose if you want to execute a certain workflow for n number of times, right? Then you can go for using the for each activity. Like we have for each, while, do until, different types of loops available in the data factory, right? We have another common example is web activity, right? So whenever you want to do a search, right, against a REST API call, right? In that case, you can go for using web activity where you can do a hit and pretty much get the response and flatten that information if it is coming in JSON or XML file, right? So ADF has built-in flattening feature for JSON, right? If it is a simple JSON, right? But if you have a different levels of data elements in JSON, then pretty much you may end up, doing some other way arounds to flatten those. We have lookup activity, which is primarily used to perform a lookup against a data element, right? So for example, let's suppose you generally in data engineering, the best practice is to execute the data pipelines based on some control tables, right? Where pipeline would be executing dynamically on a day in, day out basis based on the parameters defined in the control table. Like today, you have to execute this data element. This processing has to be performed. This is your filtration condition. These are the table that you have to process. Maybe tomorrow you have to do a different set of elements, right? So those can be guided with the help of lookup activities. Now, this is how the ADF studio will look like. I'll also show in the demo as well, and I'll go with each and every component of the data factory. But just to showcase the snippet, like the different categories of the activities available within the data factory studio, which starts from move and transform and goes until Power Query and machine learning. Next item is the data sets. So data set, as I said before, is nothing but a data structure for the data factory, which tells to an activity like what table or a file we are getting from the source, or what is your destination, right? So for example, let's suppose if you are moving data from a relational database to a relational database, right? So the link service will have the name of the server and the database name and the user credentials, whereas dataset will store the table name and the schema from which you are going to move that information. If you see in this small snippet at the screenshot at the end, where it says this table has the dataset.schema, dataset.schema, and we have the dataset.table name. This is a dynamic way of putting it. You can also hard code it, right, if need be. And then if you also see on the top, it also has a reference of a link service and integration runtime, right? That shows the dependency, right? So a data set is dependent on link service and link service is dependent on the integration runtime, right? For example, if you have a blob storage, right, or S3 bucket or Google Drive, right? So if you want to pull the information from the blob storage, then the name of the storage and the access keys would be, or the SaaS URIs, would be your link services, whereas the container name and the directory name and the file name would be part of your data set. Next, we have the link service. So link service is nothing but one of the major component or the main building block of Azure Data Factory pipeline, right? So link services pretty much provides the information required in order to establish the connectivity between data factory and the external data stores or data sources. It could be any type. As I said before, there are more than 100 plus built-in connectors available in data factory. So it could be a blob storage, S3 buckets, on-prem SQL databases, Oracle databases, VMs, APIs, and whatnot, right? And link services are primarily used for two major activities, right? One is to basically provide you that connection string so that the connectivity can be established and handshake will be established and the information can be extracted and it can be passed on to the new systems, right? And second is to provide, the compute resources, right? It's working as a bridge between the integration runtime and the activities in the data set, right? So to provide the compute service which is required in order for a pipeline to execute, right? If you see the screenshot at the bottom, it talks about the link service and the integration runtime on the left, quick launch. And on the right hand side, you see there are different types of linked services, right? And the linked services here, it is shown as for Azure Key Vault, right? Because all the credentials, the best practice is not to store in a hard-coded form, right? You have to store them into some sort of key vault, right? Where the ADF or the any application can on the fly pull it from those key vaults, right? And there is a linked service for SQL Server database. There is a linked service for blob storage, right? So likewise, you can create n number of linked services to provide the compute and connection details to your activities and pipelines. The next is data flow. So data flow is pretty much, as I said before, it's a way to apply different transformations within the data factory. And this is not the only way to apply the transformations. If someone wants to use a script, maybe a Python script, maybe a SQL script, they can also do that, right? If they don't want to use a UI, right? And this data transformation logic can be applied with the help of Apache Spark clusters at the background. So Azure Data Factory uses Apache Spark clusters, to provide the required compute for the data flow engine, right? There are different data types which it supports, primarily all the data types available within any sort of ETL tool or any database platform, which could be array, date, float, integer, log maps, strings, and whatnot. And the number of transformations or the type of transformations available in data flow are many, right? So some of them are here like row modifiers or row-based transformations, right? Such as filters, sorting, altering row, right? Schema modifiers, right? Where you can have examples of aggregations, derived column, ranking, pivoting, unpivoting, and whatnot, right? Why I say it is a schema modifier, because if I do an aggregation, right, for example, I get let's suppose 4 columns from my table, and I do kind of in a plain select statement, like, select sum of this from this and group by this, right? So your table essentially has 4 columns, but your outcome may have just 2 columns, right? So that's why it is called as the schema modifier. Multiple inputs, outputs, right? So if you want to basically divide the incoming data stream into multiple data streams based on certain conditions, you can use these set of transformations, which includes conditional split, join, and lookup, and whatnot. Then you have formatters, like, where you want to flatten or parse various data elements, right? So these are the some set of transformations available within data flow. And as I said before, it has more than that. Whatever is listed down here, that can be explored on need basis. Next, and again, one of the most important and critical element of data factory is the integration runtime, right? So there are different types of integration runtimes, as I said before, that it is used to provide the infrastructure or the compute in order for ADF to, function, right? So there are different categories, and there are different reasons why we need the integration runtimes, right? So one is the data flow, which I already explained in the past slide, is having Apache Spark cluster, which is nothing but an integration runtime to provide the compute so that your data flow engine works, right? Data movement activity, right? So if we want to move data from point A to point B, we need a bridge, something that can bridge that gap, that can establish the connectivity on our behalf, right? So that's where the integration runtime comes into play. Activity dispatch, right? So let's suppose you are in a distributed environment where ADF is sitting on the Microsoft Azure data center, and you want to call, and let's suppose your workflow is in East US location, right? And you wanted to, request a pull from a server sitting in an on-prem data environment within San Diego location, right? So who will dispatch this? Integration runtime will establish that connectivity and dispatch that, right? Then last is the SSIS package execution, right? So SSIS package execution, as I said before, if you have any built-in legacy SSIS packages and you want to execute that as part of the ADF workflow, then this type of runtime is required to execute that SSIS package, right? IR also, bridges the gap and, pretty much, help you execute those activity directly within the environment or dispatch it to the external environment where those activities can be executed. There are 3 major categories of runtimes. We have Azure, self-hosted, and Azure SSIS. By default, whenever by default, whenever Azure Data Factory instance is created, an Azure runtime is by default provisioned, and that is auto resolve, and which means that the location of that runtime could be anywhere within your selected geography, right? Self-hosted runtime is something when you want to establish a connectivity with a system, could be source, could be destination, which is sitting behind the corporate firewall, meaning which is protected by the firewall and not open for direct traffic, right? Example which I gave you before, a data factory instance sitting in East US data center, and you want to pull data from a server sitting in on-prem environment in one of the customer's office in San Diego, right? So in that case, a self-hosted runtime has to be created, and a hybrid connector has to be installed in San Diego data center, right? And last one is the Azure SSIS runtime, which is nothing but directly related with the SSIS package execution. So whenever you want to execute this kind of package, right, SSIS packages, you need to have the Azure SSIS runtime in place. And this is how the UI looks like, when you log into the Azure Data Factory. Now let's quickly jump on to a quick demo where I'll showcase how we move the data from one source, a source to a destination, and how that can be consumed within Power BI for reporting purposes. So this is a recorded video. I'm gonna just play it, okay? And let me know if the audio is visible or not. Yeah. Right. Let's head to Azure portal and see Azure Data Factory action. So here I'm connected to the Azure subscription, and I have given a resource for CCL and demo for our demonstration. So in this demonstration, I have two services. One is the Azure Data Factory service, and I have instances of the Azure storage, which is nothing but a data lake storage. Now, in this demonstration, the objective is to use Data Factory to create a pipeline and move data from STCPL and source and storage with STCPL and data lake storage. Now, let's go and have a look inside the source and storage. We have a container called as the landing zone. And in this landing zone, we have a kind of file called a financial sample.xlx. So imagine a scenario where
Nishant, can you increase little volume?
A lot of raw files in terms of Excel, CSV, ORC, Parquet, JSON, into the landing zone on a daily basis. And you have to write an ETL pipeline which reads these files, process and combines it, and it stores it to a centralized location. Like in our case, we have this CCLA data lake storage. Inside this data lake storage, it comes inside this processed data folder, and this is going to be exposed to your reporting platform for the reporting purposes, right? So with that being said, let's head on to Data Factory and launch the ADM Studio. This is called as the ADM Studio, which offers you different options to do the end-to-end orchestration. So in the left-hand side, you see we have the author option, monitor, manage, and learning center. So if you are starting for the first time, you can always go and use the learning center to see some sort of demonstrations available as part of the tutorials. So in our case, let's go on to the author first and look at what we get in the author option, right? So we get to see the pipelines, we get to see data sets, data flows, Power BI, as we discussed in the slide deck. Now, in order to get a pipeline, what I need is I need to have certain services, right? We need to have the pipeline, we need to have an activity, we need to have the link service, and we need to have a data set, right? So I'm going to go into the and I'm going to create a link service. Okay, one link service for my source and one link service for my destination, right? So in the link service, I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to say, what is my sources block, right? So I'll choose it, and I'll call it as maybe source data, okay? And I'm going to use the self-hosted runtime. I'm going to use my subscription to get me a storage. So I'm going to use this CCLS storage, and I'm going to test a connection. So this looks good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do one more blob storage for the destination, all right? So I'm going to call it as the processed data, or maybe I'll say destination data, okay? And then I'll say coming from this subscription and my storage name is data lake, and test the connectivity. All good here. All right, coming back to the other option. Now I need to create two data sets, one for the source and one for the destination. All right. So I'll say new data set. I'll say blob. I'll choose it. And what is my file type? It's Excel file, right? I'll choose Excel and continue. And I'll say source Excel data. And which link service are you going to use to connect to this data store? Source data, right? I'll choose it. And then you have to specify the container, which container you are looking at, and what file you are looking at. I'll choose it, okay? And which sheet you want to choose, right? So you can choose either from here, or you can also go ahead and choose at the reference stage as well, yeah. So that comes to us. So I'll choose it here. So it is taking a few seconds. Now it is available here. So we have this data set one created for the source. Likewise, we have to go and create one more data set for the destination. So I will again choose blob storage, hit continue. And I want to create, a different file format this time. So it's up to us which file format you want to use for destination. So we have a broad range of file formats supported by PDF, So I'm going to choose here a delimited file format. I'll choose this one. And then I'll say destination, or I'll say processed data set, okay? Which link service? Destination data, right? What is the path where you want to save this file? I'll say this process data, okay? I'll choose this. And then I'll say hit okay, right? Now, I have these two data sets created, and you have to be very mindful about publishing the contents, right? So whenever you make any changes, you make sure that you keep on publishing it so that it can save, Otherwise, if you don't publish it and if you just close your studio, then everything will go away, right? Now it's time to create a pipeline. So hit new. Now, which activity I'm going to use? I'm going to say copy activity, right? So I'll choose this copy activity, and then on the general, you can specify pretty much the name, description, timeout, and these various properties, right? But two properties which the must to be configured is a source and a sink, right? So now, what is your source? So my source is the source Excel data, right? And then what is your sink? So my sink is the processed data, right? So you pretty much go with the default settings for now, but yes, these properties can be configured on need basis depending on your requirement. You can specify the file path type, if you have any prefix, any wildcards in the file path, or you have list of alternative tree, right? You want to specify any timestamp based on which you want to process the files, right? So there are different properties which can be configured on need basis. And likewise for the destination or the sink, you can specify the copy behavior. You can define how many content connections you want to open to your destination, how much size of data you want to write in one block, right? So these properties can be defined here. And in our case, I'm going to go ahead with this default settings, right? And then mappings you can do if you have different set of columns in the source and destination, especially when it comes to the relational data. You have to have mapping done, right? And then settings can be defined for defining the parallelism, defining the fault tolerance, defining the staging areas, right? So these properties can be configured on this basis. Now, once you're done, then you can hit publish all, and then publish the changes here. And once publish is done, then you pretty much go and debug your pipeline, right? Right, so this is all good. Now I'm going to go ahead and say debug. So now it is going to execute this pipeline. All right, so this pipeline is completed successfully. Now let's go ahead and see in the Azure Blob Storage and see if we have this file created or not. So I will go inside it, go inside the container, inside the process data, and you see we have this file called financial sample.excel.txt because we have chosen the text file format. This is how you can use the data factory pipeline to move the data from one point to the other point, and you can pretty much do various set of transformations. Here in this demonstration is a very basic, just a movement operation, but there are set of activities specified here in the data factory which you can use to perform any sort of data operations. Now, let's go and see how to read this data in our reporting platform, right? So I'm going to go ahead and my operating stop application, and then I'll get this file into our operating stop and do some magic on top of it, right? So first, I will go on to the storage, that is data link, and I'll get the URL. So I'll copy the blob service URL from here and go back to my Power BI desktop and hit on get data and click on over. And from over, I'll get an option. What are the filters we have here? So I'll simply say blob. I'll choose blob and then put the URL link here and hit OK. And now here, it gives me that container name, and here you see we have this file, right? I'll just simply hit on transform data because it's a binary format. So I need to make certain changes. So here I'll click on this binary, and then you see we have this data population, right? And I'll quickly just rename this. I'll say pin data, right? And then simply click on close and apply. All right, so the data is loaded. And like you see here, we have this pin data table, which has got various columns and various measures, which is by default created by Power BI. So for example, if I want to see, okay, what is my product profit, okay? So I'll simply choose it, and then you can change the UI. Probably I want to see maybe an information, right? What is my products, okay? Now I want to see what is my segment-wise total sales, right? So you can convert them into a chart, right? If you want to see, let's suppose, maybe any other dimension-wise, let's suppose country-wise total sales, right? So you can pretty much have these visuals, and if you want, you can have product-based, slices, right? So pretty much you have product slices. So I'll say, okay, I want to see what is the total sales for one kind of product. You see all these visuals gets highlighted. On filter, if I say, well, what is my sales? So this is how you can create the UI on the report or the dashboard using this process data. And then you can pretty much go ahead and publish this to the reporting platforms, share it with the end users, and then they can do the business analysis and take the strategy decisions. So that's pretty much I wanted to highlight in today's session. And let's go back to the slide deck and all right, good. Am I audible? So let's talk about the use cases. We have seen a small demonstration how the data can be operated and moved and processed, and how can we consume it. Now, the very common use cases for data factory is primarily used in the data migration scenarios. A lot of organization in the industry is moving towards cloud these days because they want to get it off the on-prem infra, right? And that's where this tool comes very handy and dandy in order to move the data from on-prem to cloud. Performing various data integration operations, and integrating various processes from the ERP or any sort of CRM and whatnot, and integrating them to the analytics platform for the reporting purpose. That's where ADF can also be used. Moving data from various SFTPs or FTPs or stage servers to the data lake or Synapse or Snowflakes. That can be another use case where data factory can be used. And many times we want to do in terms of ETL operations or ELT operations, we primarily want to do the initial and incremental loads. So that incremental meaning for the first time you do load everything, and the following runs should be only delta captures, right? Whatever delta operations has been performed, only those needs to be captured and processed, right? For those use cases, again, ADF can be used, seamlessly. Now, let me just quickly give you a small background about what this data analytics and engineering bootcamp is and what all it offers. So this is very customized instructor-led bootcamp, which is designed to fill the gap between your academics as well as what is required within the current job market, right? So this bootcamp is tailor-made, and all the contents offered here are primarily based on the industry best practices and what is needed on the job, right? All the instructors who work or in this division and who impart these trainings, they are all technology certified, be it Microsoft, be it data engineering, be it the Snowflakes, be it Power BI and whatnot. We have dedicated mentors. So every group of batch gets, a primary and secondary mentors. Primary mentor is pretty much who impart the day in day out training, do the Q&As, gives assignments and whatnot. And we have secondary mentors who validate all the training, the quality, whether the candidates are grasping the right contents or not, and if there are any gaps or not, right? So some sort of SWOT analysis that we do. All the training materials, softwares required, any sort of subscriptions or licenses, will be offered by CCS Learning Academy. And we also provide various sort of mock interviews. There are two types of mock interviews. One is like weekly mocks where we pretty much cover all the topics covered in the week, as well as we have the interview mock preparations as well, in case if you opted for. We also provide different sort of assignments and projects to ensure that we get to learn the maximum of this boot camp and try to apply the knowledge that we have learned from the classes with the help of these projects and assignments, right? We also have a support team who can help with the overall application process. And if you opt for the market transitioning and you want us to get you a job, that we can also offer you. And throughout the process, there is a people relationship advocate team who pretty much get in touch with each and every candidate and ensure that quality is intact and there is no compromise on that. Now, what all modules we cover in this bootcamp? So pretty much there are four major categories. One is database designing and modeling, which includes relational database modeling and analytical models, which is primarily dimensional models and multidimensional and tabular models, right? We also train on database programming end-to-end. For data integration, we teach on SSIS, Azure, and Snowflake. And for data visualization, we cover four major tools and languages, which is SSRS, which stands for SQL Server Reporting Services. And we also offer training on the major data visualization tool in the market is Power BI and Tableau. And then we also teach Python, like how we can use Python to do the data wrangling operations and perform the data visualizations with the help of Python. So these are the modules that we cover and what you achieve. So of course, once you learn something, you feel confident, you are knowledgeable, you become very proficient with the tools of the trade, and you can design and implement various data engineering and data analytics applications using these cutting edge technologies, which is used these days. You also get hands-on with the real-time project scenarios, as we also impart sessions with the industry experts, right? Who comes once in a while and pretty much share their experience of the industry and help you understand how this knowledge can be, applied into the real-time scenarios, right? We also help with the professional resume. So whatever skills you have learned, whatever projects you have done, if you want to highlight them onto your resumes, our team can help, put them in a professional manner so that the resume, sourcers or the hiring managers can pick those resumes and make sure that it has those, different differentiators on your resume so that it can stand out, right? With the help of this, we help you transform into market-ready data engineers, data integration developers, data warehouse developers, data scientists, and whatnot, right? So that's pretty much what you get. And as a token of appreciation, you can say, or you can say a gesture, we also offer some free exam vouchers. So after the training, if we continue and get into the other services where you want our professional resume writing services and placement services, we also help you with free vouchers so that you can take those vouchers and appear in the exam all conducted by Microsoft, Snowflake, and whatnot, and get certified. And these exam voucher fee, if I say it starts from $165 and goes up till $500 per exam, right? So that is one add-on which I want to highlight as a key selling item here, So that's pretty much from my side. Over to you, Rajbir.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Nishant, for the great presentation and your valuable information. Now I request to the audience, please pop in your questions. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. Our instructor Nishant will answer all your questions. Let me see if we got any question. Okay, no questions yet. Okay, we will give some more time. Let us know if anyone have any question. Meanwhile, Nishant, I have a question. Can a fresher, can a fresher from any field can start this bootcamp?
Uh, I mean, there are two answers to it. I mean, if someone
Mhm,
has that zeal, I have seen people from different handy jobs, right? They
mhm.
have applied and did very well, right? And now, I mean, I know personally few folks in the states who are doing good in their respective careers, right? So it doesn't matter what field you are in. It's like, if you have that mindset and you want to learn something, then your current education and field doesn't matter here, right? Because we take the candidates as someone who are layman in that technology, doesn't know anything about it, and
Okay.
pretty much we
Mhm.
start from the very basic scratch and go to the advanced level.
All right. Mhm. Okay. And Nishant, what do you suggest to the candidates like when they come for bootcamp program? So any prior background knowledge or maybe like what should candidate learn? What do you want to suggest to them? Like at least some prior knowledge on some techniques or something they should have?
I think a bit of logical reasoning is a must because since you are going to go into programming and logic designing, right? So a bit of logic is required. But as I said, like before, there is no prerequisites, right? Because we treat everyone as a layman in this field. So there is no pre-requirement where you need to know this technology or that technology or this much of a scripting, right? That is not the roadblock. You just be reasonable in terms of the logics that you want to put in with the help of these technologies, and that's it, right?
Perfect. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And one last question. Nishant, I just want your opinion. And you know how AI is booming these days, right? So do you
Mhm.
think will AI will replace the data analyst?
I mean, it's very premature at this point. There are a lot of buzz around generative AI. Pretty
Mhm,
much, I mean, I have also automated various business processes in my department with the help of ChatGPT 4.0. But still, I
mhm.
see a gap and way to go, right? But in the near future, I don't see that a job of a data analyst is going to be taken over by the AI space.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Nishant, for answering my questions. So there are no questions. Yeah, there are no questions from audience too. So I think we are done up with the questions. If anyone have any more questions, you can reach us on the email. We will reach you back with all the details. Thank you, Nishant. We have done up with the questions. And again, thank you for your time today. I have a special offer announcement. We are running a special offer on data analytics and engineering bootcamp and also on few more courses. This is the industry's our big discount. It is the premium discount. To know more, you can visit on our website. Me and my team will also send you the email. You can reply us back. If in case you have any friend or colleague looking for the training, you can also suggest them. I have also added my LinkedIn profile and company details. If anyone want to know more, can connect with me directly. So when it comes on upskilling and reskilling, CCS Learning Academy is designed to be your organization's secret weapon. Our network of talented and passionate professional instructors are ready and waiting to work directly with you and your team. If you are new to IT or seasoned professional, we offer a wide range of courses for your needs. If you need more information, please contact us. On behalf of CCS and our instructor Nishant, we would like to thank you for your attention on this important training session. Hope you enjoyed the session. Looking forward to you all for joining our future webinars. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much.